Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Now today I'm going to do a little painting with flowers, and it's going to be irises. So I'm going to take you over to my painting table. I got some a little bit of background about it, and maybe show you a little sketch, and then we'll get right into the painting. So let's go over to my painting board, and let's talk about the flowers. Now this is a picture of the iris, and I want to give you a little bit of background. The word iris comes from the Greek word meaning rainbow, and it's also the name for the Greek goddess of the rainbow, Iris. Now some people believe that the name refers to the variety of flower colors that are among the many species. So this happens to be a purple, violet, blue iris, but there are many other colors that you can find of the iris flower. So today I'm going to be working basically with the violet and blue iris colors. And you'll see also these little items out here, these are called beards. That's called a bearded iris. Now let's go into a little bit, here's another picture of the iris showing the stalks and so forth. So these are good reference material to take a look at. This is a sketch that I had on my downloadable website that you could download and paint along with me. This is a sketch that I'm going to be using today for the program today. Now you'll notice I've transferred this to my sketch pad. I'm going to do a little bit of description here of the flower itself. Up here at the top of the flower, there are three main petals up here, and they're called standards. And basically, there are three petals here, and there's a little bit of shading that I'm going to do also in the painting. This will be shaded. I'm shading this in a pencil, just to give you an idea of how I'm going to approach this flower. So the shading will separate the petals. These are the outside petals. They're called standards. Then there are three other petals, which are called falls, F-A-L-L-S. And they fall down on the forward part here of the flower, and I'll shade those in also, where I'll show you how I'm going to do in the painting. This separates the petals down here. And this little section here is called the beard. It's a colorful color. It's usually, if it's violet, this will be like a little yellow or orangish color, but it's called the beard. And I think what that's there for, it attracts the insects and the bees and so forth to the flower. And then down here, of course, is the stem. So let's go over to my painting board, and I'll show you how we set up here. Get my pointer out of the way. Okay, I've transferred the sketch here to this piece of watercolor paper. This is a 140-pound Gemini watercolor paper. This is about 8 by 10 piece of paper that I have here. 140-pound Gemini watercolor paper. And over here, I've got a round brush. This is my number 6 round brush. And I'm going to use probably a flat brush today. These are both silver brushes. And use a number 8 larger brush for doing some blending. So that's about all the brushes I'll need today. And the color I'm going to mix up, this is quinacridone violet. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of cobalt blue, do a little mixture here. And I'll add a little more blue. I want to get it a little more on the blue side. Okay, and I'm going to paint in that the top petal. Now notice right away that's going to be dark. I want to lighten that up just a little bit, so I added a little bit of water to my brush. And I also like to leave a little bit of whites in my paintings. I don't fill that in all the way. Leave a little bit of white paper showing. And then I'll come over here on the other side. These are the standards that are the outside petals of the iris. And I add a little color into that, just for a little bit of variety of color. Now while that's drying, I'll go ahead and also paint in what they call the falls. These are the inside petals which fall down. They're called the falls, and they fall down and hang down from the iris flower. I'm going to paint these in with a light violet color. With a little touch of blue, just to vary the colors a little bit. And get this one over here. There are 3 petals down here that they're on the outside or on the inside of the iris, and they fall down. Get that just a little bit darker, adding a little more pigment into that petal. And I'll go ahead now. I'm going to go ahead now and fill in up here at the top now. That's a little bit dry, so I'm going to go ahead and fill in the top with that same color, a little bit lighter. The round brush is the easier brush to use on a flower because there's so many little points and little places, little tight areas you want to get into. So a round brush is more appropriate to use on a flower. So I'm using more of a round brush today. Now what I'm going to do now, this second brush I have, I'm going to put just water in it. I'm going to pick up some of that, a little darker mix. And I'm going to go in here, I'm going to blend in here just a little bit on the inside. This petal is on the inside, so it's going to have a little shadow. And on the other side also. This petal is on the inside of those other petals. So these are the standards which are on the outside of the flower. But now I'm separating them with a little bit of value, just like I did with my pencil sketch when I showed the sketch. I put a little darker value here on the inside to separate those petals. Now what I may do is take that other brush. Now what I do now is take the damp brush and I may lift a little bit of that color out of there just to make it lighter on the inside. I want to make that a little bit lighter. So what I did is I took just a damp brush, took the water out of it, and now I'm lifting some of that pigment out of there. Okay. Now the same thing down here. I'm going to paint this petal. This is the falls. This is the third petal down below. I'm going to paint around that center there, which is the beard. That'll get a nice bright color in there. Okay, but I'm going down. I'll leave a little bit of white paper showing, just give a little variety. Even a little touch of white paper showing. The white paper gives you a little sparkle, gives you a little variety of color. I'll let that one dry just a little bit. Now I'm going to go back with that darker mix, and I'm going to go on the inside here. Again, I'm going to separate these petals here with a darker value. And I'll take that damp brush. Take a damp brush, and now I'm blending. I'm blending that darker value out a little bit, so there's not a line. And come over here, put a little darker value down here, and take that damp brush. Get that damp brush and just drag it along, that damp brush along the edge of that darker mix, and blend it out. Okay, now I've got one more flower here I got to do. So, oops, a little bit of water dropped on my paper, so it's still wet. And you pick it up. So I'm going to go over and paint this one now a little bit. Control the water in the paintbrush. I'm trying to keep the colors a little bit lighter. I can always go back in and darken the colors up a little bit, which I may will to give a little more contrast. But right now I just want to get the colors in. So I'm working on this second flower, this second iris over here. It's a little smaller, but it's in the back. It's behind the one I just did, so it's behind. Go down. Now I'm painting in the lower petals here on this second iris. So the quiz today is what are these petals called? Well, the answer is these are the falls. They fall down. Because that's the best way to remember them. The petals here called falls fall down. I guess that's where it got its name. Makes sense to me. Oh, I'm using quinacridone violet. This is a beautiful color. I like the way the color shows. It's a nice violet, and I'm watering it down so it's got a nice soft violet tone. And I can always darken it up a little bit by adding more pigment. Okay, now I'm going to go back. Yeah, I'm going to have to come back and put a little more value on. I can see already when the paint dries, watercolor dries 40% lighter when you put it on. So I can see already I'm going to have to darken up some of those values, and that's good. I'm letting it dry now while I'm working on this flower here. Okay, these are the standards now. These are the outside petals of this second one. So the 3 petals up here, called the standards, at the top of the flower. And this, now I'm working on the third fall. There's 3 falls that fall down. And these are the inside petals. So when you're painting a flower, you should study a little bit about, number one, the structure of the petals, and get to know a little bit of how they're formed, and learn a little bit about the characteristic of the flower, and then you can paint it. I think it's like any subject. The more you know about it, the better you can represent what you think about it or how you feel about it. And this is a beautiful flower, and there's a lot of people like irises. A lot of gardens have them. Okay, let me let that dry a little bit. They're both dry. I can work on the stems and so forth. So I'm going to mix a little bit of green I've got green number 1, which is a light green. Then I'm going to put a little bit of Hooker's green, which is a dark green. And I'll pick up a little bit of blue. I want to mix the blue in with the green. I don't like to use one single color. I like to have a mixture. Actually, in greens, I like to mix the yellows in with the blues to make my own greens. So this particular one over here, I'm going to start out with this green over here on this particular leaf. There's a leaf to the plant. And I'll start out with a light color green here. Then I'll pick up that darker green and then come in and blend it in on the outside. So it'll be an outside, inside part of the leaf. So while it was still wet, I blended in with a darker color, and then they blend together very naturally. Okay, the light and dark side of that area. Let's try it up here now. So above here, I'm going to start up here, paint in the light side, which right now I could interpret this as following the light. The light's coming from this direction, right side coming across. So this would be the light edge. And then the dark edge will be over here. So I picked up the darker mix of the darker green and I blend it in while it's still wet over top of the lighter green. Okay. And that turned out pretty nice. I like that. Okay. Got one more, got a couple more, so I'm going to have more fun playing with branches here, or with leaves. Here's another one over here. Give a nice. Now these leaves are also interesting. They have real sharp points, and they flare out as they come down into the plant. Now I'm putting that dark mix on top of that light mix of the blend. Smooth out the edge. And I'll make that pointy, real nice and pointy up there. That's it. That's characteristic of that leaf on the flower. Then I come down here underneath this part. And by the time I'm finished with this, the petals will be dry enough for me to go in and darken them up just a little bit. I want to add a little bit of shadow to the shapes so it'll stand out a little better. And I got one more little stem up here. Again, this comes down in the center, so there are 3. Actually, I got 4. That'd be all right. As long as you have basically 3 odd ones and maybe a stray one. I'm putting the dark. Now I'm putting the dark color next to that light to blend it in. Okay, then we'll come on down here and finish this off. Let's see, this would be stem under here. So now I'm working on the stem below. So I've got this stem. Actually, this is the leaf, not the stem. Use up a little more. Use up a little more Hooker's green. Now let's see. I got one more leaf over here. I'll come over there like that. I'll pick up the light value. Put that on top. I'll finish these off. So I'm just adding the light and dark green to the leaves of this plant. These all don't grow like this separately. They're all, you'll see a whole bunch of them. I showed that one picture there of a whole group of flowers. So they don't grow just singularly. They grow in bunches. I'll leave some white paper showing. That's okay. Okay, now the stems themselves, what I like to do is I put a little bit of burnt sienna and yellow ochre, and they're a little bit brown. The stems are a little bit brown, so I'm going to come in here and put a little bit of brown. They're kind of a yellowish, brownish little stem underneath the flower stems or petals, and then they turn into a green. The rest of the stems turn into a green, so they'll go into the plant. Okay, now I'm going to finish off the bud, finish off the flowers. What I want to do now is mix a little bit of, I got the quinacridone violet and a little touch of blue, a little bit of cobalt blue. It'll give me a nice violet color. Now I want to come back in here now. I'm going to add a little more value here on the inside. I want to separate those petals. Now I have a wet brush, a damp brush, that I come down inside, and I'm going to, what I'm going to do is just move that along that color, and that'll blend that color in with the rest. So now I'm blending that dark into the rest of the petal. That separates those two. Now one more, we'll go down here on this one, put a little darker value underneath this, separates this petal. Now I'll go in with that damp brush. With just a little bit of water, I don't need much water, just a damp brush to fade that out. That turned out real nice, I like that. Blending a color takes a little bit of practice. But basically, you put the darker color where you want it, say along an edge or a place you want to make a little bit darker. Then you take another brush with just water in it and make it short damp, not too wet. And then you blend that color out away from one edge. And that separates it. And that separates those petals there. Now we'll do the same thing up here with this other one. A little bit along here. Just takes a little bit of pigment, and then with a damp brush, blend that inside edge, so all you show is the separation of the two petals. And one more. Put this one down here. We'll darken this edge up. And then we'll separate that with a damp brush with just a little blending. And then one more over here. And blend that edge away. Okay, now for the center of the flower, we're going to mix a nice colorful, I'm going to use a bit of orange. It's called the beard. And the bearded iris has a very colorful center that comes out. And it's It's an orange or yellowish color. Very characteristic of this type of flower. I found in my research that you know, all irises are different species or different types of irises that have different characteristics. Some of them, all of them don't have beards. Some of them are constructed another way. Okay, now I want to paint the round. I want to do the background. And what I've got here is I'm going to do a light background because I want the flower to come out. So what I'm going to do is use my palette in the bottle, my dot spray with just water in it, and I'm going to use the dot. Now I use a dot spray because that way I can control where the water goes, just with a dot spray. Because fine mist would spray out too much. The dot spray goes and hits in little places. And then I'll pick up some color. I think I'll put a light blue. Yeah, when I use that dot spray, I'll use a light tapping motion, just a light tap, and that water will just come out in drops, just in drops. And that's all I want is a drop. I want a dot pattern. I don't want a large amount of water. I just want a little area. Now I'm going to take this larger brush. This is a number 16 round, and I'm going to just put a nice colorful wash here behind the flowers. And because this is blue and these are purples, if I touch some of the edges of the purple, it doesn't matter because the blue and the greens and the purples all work together. They're very analogous. So I'm not worried about getting a contrast or a complementary mix here. So I'm just playing around with the edges here now. You can leave some white showing. I can show lost and found edges. But basically I'm just kind of coloring in the background to give a little more interest. And this is how you would color in a background around an object like this. So you would wet the paper first and then take you color your background and then go around and paint in behind. Okay, pick up a little more of that dot spray, just a few dots, light tapping, and then pick up the color. A very efficient way to paint with a dot spray bottle and a paintbrush. Paintbrush with just a little bit of paint in it. I'm using just a touch of cobalt blue, a little bit of that green number 1 mixed in to give a little green background color. Maybe an aqua, but I don't want too much color contrast. I just want a light background. I'm basically looking at color contrast or value contrast. I'm going to turn this around so I can work with it better. Turn it upside down. And just a few more drops over here with just a light tapping motion. Put a little water on the paper. Pick up that pigment with a large brush, number 16 round. Okay. This is a blend brush. It's got several types of hairs in it, but it's a nice soft brush that I use. This is a Holbein product which I have on my website. But it comes to a nice sharp point because I can get in there and do all kinds of detail with it. It also holds a lot of water, so it's great for filling in spots that you want to get covered fast. So it has hold a lot of pigment and a lot of water. So it does a nice job. Okay, now what I can do now, I can take some of this color now that I have on the palette, and I can indicate just a hint maybe of another group of flowers here in the garden. Just a hint. So I'm just taking, these are like little touches. They're going to fade away almost into nothing, but it gives you a sense or a feeling that you know, you're in a garden, you've got several of these flowers around, and you just a little hint of that color touch. Okay. Now I'm going to put a mat around this. Okay. I don't think I need to bring it into a close-up. Everybody can see that pretty well. It's good. I think I like the values. I didn't want to get too dark in here. I left the light and darks in here of the actual buds and the colors. I could add more colors in here or there, but you know, at this point, when you do a painting like this, it's best to let it dry and let it set it aside for a while, and then go back and take a look at it, and then you can make some final touches. I may even go in with a colored pencil, a watercolor pencil, and do some fine marks on it. That's another thing I can do. I've done that before. Is after I'm done, I'll go back in with maybe a watercolor pencil and just touch up some of the leaves, maybe a little bit of the purple on the flowers. So there are some fine touches you can do to fine-tune a finished painting. But that concludes what my demonstration I want to get across today. So let's go back to the main camera. So today's painting exercise was painting the iris flowers, and oh yeah, I meant to show you something else. I need to take you back. I'm sorry. I'm going to take you back to the overhead again. Now here's a painting I did a while back of a smaller painting. This one I did here a little bit on 11 by probably 8 by 10. This is like a 5 by 7. I did a smaller painting. You can see the same kind of idea. A little bit darker in the background, but the colors and so forth were basically the same. And this was a smaller painting that I did before, the same configuration, same composition. Okay. All right. I'll bring you back to the main camera. Okay. Oh, I got ahead of myself there. I did want to show you another painting I had done earlier, and then I darkened up the background and did some other things to fine-tune that little finest painting. Yeah, my streaming program, I'm live on Saturdays. I'll be here next Saturday. My live program, I'm probably going to work with a couple of things. I want to do some masking work techniques and do a little special painting on next Saturday. So I'll be here Saturday at 2 o'clock again to do a little demonstration painting. So those of you out there watching, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified of my next video. And that way you'll see what I have planned. I'll have a sketch, and I also have a temporary painting that I've done before that will show you what I'm going to do, and also the schedule, etc. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can stay abreast and stay tuned with my next video. And thank you for tuning in today, and give me a thumbs up. They help out on my YouTube ratings. So you all stay safe, and try out this painting for once, and also put it on my Facebook page. I have a link on my description of this video to go to my Facebook page for Fun with Watercolors, and there you can share the painting with me and with my other group. So I hope you try that out and join us on Fun with Watercolors on Facebook. So we'll see you in the next video.